All right, in other news, Russia has conducted fresh strikes on Ukraine's Zaporizhia region. Ukraine says Russian forces carried out 567 attacks over the last 24 hours.
Rescue workers say one person died and 26 were injured. Biggest Russian drone and missile attack of the war. Ukraine says Moscow fired 550 drones and 11 missiles overnight.
What's more dangerous? Missiles worth millions or drones that cost less than a used car? Ukraine just answered that question by launching 300 drones worth the price of a single Russian cruise missile. They overwhelmed air defenses, destroyed a command hub disguised as a hospital, and exposed a chilling truth. Firepower is no longer about cost, it's about brains and timing. But what happened after those 7 minutes changed everything again. If Ukraine could do this once, what does it signal about the next stage of this war? Before we move on, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How does a weapon that costs less than a used car outsmart one of the world's most expensive air defense shields? That question was answered the moment Ukraine launched 300 AI-driven drones toward the Belgorod region. Together, their total cost barely reached $600,000, the same price Russia pays to build and fire off a single cruise missile. On paper, it looked like a mismatch. Hundreds of cheap flying machines against layers of radars, interceptors, and the prized S-400 batteries guarding Russia's skies.
To Russia launching a massive aerial assault against Ukraine, the biggest since the invasion more than 3 years ago.
Ukraine and Russia are exchanging fire on multiple fronts. Bridges are being destroyed, cities are burning, and oil depots are under attack. At least 7 people were injured in a missile strike, while 2 others were hospitalized, and 23 private homes, 12 apartment buildings, and a post office suffered damage.
Defense analysts expected the swarm to be picked apart quickly, one small drone after another, erased before touching its target. But the plan wasn't a simple rush in numbers. It was engineered as a trap to expose the limits of the systems Russia trusted most. The first wave wasn't meant to strike anything at all. They were jamming drones, flying high and noisy, sending out signals that tangled up enemy radars. Screens lit with false blips. Operators saw echoes instead of clear paths. While radars strained to sort noise from truth, the second wave slipped in low, treating terrain like cover. These drones followed tree lines, curved around villages, and darted by tall buildings that broke up radar signals. To the computers inside interception systems, the patterns didn't look military. The drones moved like confused birds rather than war machines, and that hesitation in automatic tracking bought them seconds that proved costly. Now imagine 150 of those machines packed with blocks of C4, each able to punch holes in walls or roofs, all gliding under those radar arcs, while lighter decoys zipped higher up. Those decoys were the real killers of Russia's budget. Operators saw what looked like incoming threats and sent million-dollar interceptors racing at shadows. One by one, rockets worth more than entire batches of Ukrainian drones went chasing radio-controlled bait. Each wasted missile drained the defense. Each explosion in the sky at empty air peeled away the shields surrounding the intended target. Within minutes, the layers of protection Russia depended on had bled themselves dry. Inside Belgorod's largest military hospital, the base adapted from medical wards and reinforced bunkers. Alarms screamed. But 7 minutes after the drones appeared on radar, the attack hit its peak. Walls gave way under synchronized detonations. Oxygen tanks stored inside depots ruptured, creating back-to-back blasts. Smoke spreading fast through hallways. Fire rolled down entire floors, collapsing stairwells and bringing ceilings down onto hundreds inside. 70% of the structure, once a secure node in Russia's war machine, lay in ruin before crews outside fully understood the number of attackers that had slipped past their screens. Observers who once believed swarm tactics were only theory had their evidence. Modern expensive air defense designed to stop hypersonic threats and jet fighters had been ripped apart by machines cobbled together at a fraction of the price. The strike proved more than destructive. It carried a message that resilience can't be measured in billions. If a hospital converted into a command post could fall this quickly, what else inside Russian borders stood vulnerable? And if $600,000 wiped out a billion-dollar wall of protection, then the very calculation of military power suddenly tilted. Success was no longer about who fielded the most advanced missile or loudest radar system. It was about who could outthink, out-coordinate, and exploit blind spots. But this wasn't simply about toppling walls or igniting fuel stores. The hospital itself was something far more valuable than just concrete and wards. And that reality reshaped how the strike was understood, both in Moscow and beyond. Why target a hospital? And why was its destruction cheered as a battlefield success? The answer lies in what the building had become. Belgorod's military hospital started as a place for wounded soldiers and regular patients. But by the second year of the war, it had transformed into one of Russia's most critical command hubs. Within its walls, encrypted servers tied local operations directly back to Moscow. Senior officers cycled through its reinforced floors, treating the facility as both a safe meeting point and a shield against strikes. Its location near the border placed it just close enough to the front to control operations, but just far enough behind lines to feel untouchable. That sense of safety proved false when the drones made their run. On paper, the hospital remained a medical facility. International law still recognizes hospitals as protected sites, meant to safeguard the injured, regardless of allegiance. But the real picture inside Belgorod blurred those protections. Basements once designed for patient records held racks of servers buzzing with battlefield data. Halls that should have seen stretchers rolled in and out carried officers uploading orders to brigades scattered across the line. Reinforcements originally poured into walls to guard patients from bombing raids now stood as bunkers protecting command staff. This dual nature gave the place its disguise, but also made it an obvious target in the eyes of Ukrainian planners. That created the central tension. Was the facility still a civilian asset, or had it crossed the line into a military target? Ukraine argued the latter. Intelligence reports pointed to encrypted satellite relays feeding from the hospital directly to the defense ministry. Analysts added that officer rotations matched significant Russian offensives, confirming the site's role as an operational headquarters. By converting parts of a hospital into a nerve center of command, Moscow had stripped it of the protections medical buildings were supposed to enjoy. Civilian hospitals stand to care for the injured. This one stood to keep the war going. When it collapsed under the synchronized detonations, the effect trickled far beyond its walls. Analysts studying Russian logistics estimate that ground units operating along that sector saw combat efficiency drop by nearly a third. The hospital's destruction didn't just erase a place of treatment. It cut command links and forced wounded evacuation routes to shift more than 100 miles deeper inside Russian territory. Soldiers who expected rapid triage now faced longer rides in overloaded convoys, slowing recovery and burning transport resources. What looked on maps like the fall of a single structure actually struck at the pace and endurance of Russia's field forces. For the men inside, the experience turned into chaos. Many had believed the thick walls and the designation as a hospital guaranteed safety. Instead, they found corridors cracking, oxygen tanks feeding sudden back-to-back fireballs, and stairwells choking with smoke. Officers huddled in underground chambers soon scrambled for escape routes that were crumbling above them. In moments designed for treatment and rest, panic ruled. Survivors reported fellow soldiers suffocating in rooms that minutes before had been used for command briefings. Moscow's answer was furious. Retaliation came not with words, but with waves of Iskander ballistic missiles and sorties of Su-34 bombers. This was not only about inflicting damage, but reclaiming prestige. Yet what followed revealed more weakness than strength. Ukraine's defenses shot down aircraft, caught ballistic missiles mid-flight, and blunted attacks meant to show overwhelming force. Instead of proving dominance, Russia's reaction exposed how limited even its prestige arsenal was against a layered defense prepared for modern threats. The strike proved wars are no longer won by who spends the most, but by who thinks faster with less. A swarm costing $600,000 leveled defenses built on billions, showing strength now depends on precision and coordination rather than raw firepower. If minutes of drone attacks can erase a fortress shielded by prestige weapons, what does that mean for superpowers whose strategies rest on missiles and jets worth fortunes? Viewers should track these shifts closely, because tomorrow's battlefield will be shaped less by steel and explosions and more by software, teamwork, and asymmetry.